What are the pros and cons of living in Milton, Ontario? That's one of the most common questions I get from people that are thinking about making a move to the area. And in today's video, we're going to take a look at the good and we're going to take a look at the bad. And you're going to want to stick around until the end because some of the bad might actually cost you money. If we haven't met yet, my name is Mike Santos. I'm a local realtor here in the GTA, and on this channel, you'll find real estate information that no one else is sharing with you. All right, let's dig into it. First, let's take a quick look at where Milton is actually located. So it's in the northwest part of the greater Toronto area. It's about 20 or 30 minutes away from all of Mississauga, Oakville, and Burlington, depending upon which part of those cities you're going to. And you'll find it's about an hour away from downtown Toronto, depending upon the traffic. One of the biggest pros and reasons why people move to Milton is because it's incredibly safe. It is part of Halton region, which includes both Oakville and Burlington, and these areas are consistently ranked as one of the safest cities to live in all of Canada for cities over 100,000 people. And that stat is incredibly important for young families or anyone that really wants to sleep easy at night, have that peace of mind. It's definitely one of the first things that my clients bring up when we talk about moving to Milton. Another big pro about living in Milton is its location. Now, a lot of people may not see this as a pro at first because Milton is a little bit further out than other cities like Mississauga, Oakville, or Burlington, but because of the real estate value, and we'll get into that in the next point, this makes it a really attractive area. It's really not too far. It's only about 20 or 30 minutes from all of those cities, and it's only about an hour from Toronto. Now, if you're going to be commuting by car, that can be a little bit longer depending upon traffic, but Milton does have a GO train station which takes you straight into Union. Now, it doesn't have exactly all day two-way service just yet, but at one day, this will come in the near future. So for commuters, this is actually a really accessible place to live. You have Highway 401 just there, especially if you live on the east or the north ends of town. So overall, this is a very convenient place to live, and you can get to a lot of different cities in a pretty short amount of time. Just a really quick break here. If you're finding value in this video, go ahead and hit the like button below. It will help other people find content just like this. Okay, we'll get right back to it. The next pro about living in Milton is definitely the real estate value and affordability. Affordability, of course, being a relative thing when it comes to living in the greater Toronto area, but when you compare it to cities like Burlington, Oakville, and Mississauga, you can definitely get a lot more for your money here. You don't necessarily need to go to your max when it comes to your pre-approved budget. So this is a city, when you're comparing it to those other cities that I just mentioned, this becomes a real big pro because you can get into that detached that you may not have been able to get into in Oakville. You can get even into a townhouse for a first-time buyer. A lot of first-time buyers seek areas like Milton because there's a lot of new development there and affordable homes. So on the balance, this is a really great place to live, especially for first-timers and young families. Even for downsizers, you have Old Milton, which has some bungalows and splits and things like that that have less stairs and a little bit more lot space at a much more affordable price than you would find in a Burlington or an Oakville, for example. And to give you some more specific examples of pricing, you can do one of two things. You can either check out the list of preferred homes that are in the description below. You can check out all of the ranges of prices, but as of today, the median price for detached homes is around 1.24 million in Milton. Semi-detached would be just under a mil at 990,000. Townhomes at 925,000. A condo townhome would be about 720,000, and a two-bedroom apartment would be about 615,000. This is definitely the biggest pro, and one I'll spend the most time on in this video is the nature and recreation options that you have in Milton. So for a lot of people who are even a little bit outdoorsy, they're going to love it in Milton because you can get into that home that you didn't think you could get into in other cities, and you have so much at your disposal in terms of the outdoors. Milton backs onto one of the biggest conservation areas in southern Ontario as just one example. You've got Kelso Conservation for beaches, canoeing, skiing, and hiking. There's Rattlesnake Point for climbing and lookouts. And then you have an area like Hilton Falls, which are great for waterfall hikes. And the great thing about Milton is that it has neighborhood parks in every single neighborhood, and really good ones too. A couple of standout ones are the Beatty and Coates neighborhood parks, and then just next door in neighboring Wilmot, you have the huge Milton Community Sports Park. So Milton isn't just green space, it also has great recreational options too. One good example is the Milton Leisure Center, which has pools, gyms, and really kid-friendly things like water slides. And there's the Milton Sports Center, which is just north of the community park that I mentioned before. This also has tracks and indoor rinks for skating. And then there's the Mattamy National Cycling Center. This is an Olympic-grade velodrome that was built for the Pan Am Games that locals can actually use. And you've also got farms in Milton, out in rural Milton. You can explore them with your family, and your kids are especially going to love it. You have ones like Spring Ridge, and a personal favorite of mine is Chudley's. I can't tell you how many times I've taken my daughter there over the years. These are great places to explore, super affordable and close. And then within the actual town of Milton, closer to the old Milton, the main street area, you have the farmers market that runs from May through October. And then of course, at the heart of the area, you have the Milton Fairgrounds, which runs events throughout the year. And as promised, we're going to take a look at some cons of living in Milton, because it's important to look at both the good and the bad and see if that trade-off is worth it if you're thinking of moving to the area. Milton is absolutely great for families, as you've seen, especially young families. If you're any kind of outdoorsy person or like to get out and be active, this is a great city to live. But if you're into concerts or art shows or nightlife or restaurants, Milton just offers very little. There aren't really any large venues, there's no pro sports, and there's not really much of a downtown nightlife to speak of. Now, that's expected for a smaller town, but considering the population rise we've seen in Milton over the past 20 or 25 years, the entertainment side is just not catching up. It's definitely geared to young families, obviously in terms of the nature and outdoors and parks. But if you're a younger person and you're looking for more entertainment, or even just the restaurant scene is not really up to par, there's not a lot of options, and it definitely lacks a diverse set of options when it comes to food as well. And then you have shopping options, which are also very limited. You have the Milton Mall, which is kind of outdated, not really sort of kept up compared to other malls that you can find in other cities. And then of course, for younger people, teenagers, the big complaint is that there's just really nothing to do in Milton. Now, that might not be completely fair, because teenagers will complain about not having much to do in most suburbs, but I would say that overall, most locals will complain about those things: shopping, nightlife, food, and overall things to do. They do have to leave Milton in order to get those things. I would say that this con is probably the biggest, especially for residents who have been living in Milton for a long time. We sort of have this divide between the old Milton and the new Milton. And I want to take just a quick second to explain the difference. So Milton was a very small town for a long time, and we refer to that as Old Milton. But starting in the late 90s and early 2000s, essentially the entire southern half of what is now known as the town of Milton was developed. And over that time, that's brought a lot of new development and a huge amount of population to the area. And for a lot of local residents, this has changed sort of the fabric of the town. That's to be expected when you have a town grow so rapidly, so quickly, and we've seen that in other cities as well. Guelph is another famous example for that, where you had an old city, an old historic city, and then a brand new southern end of town built over the past 20 or 25 years. So the sense of community, that small town feel, it's just not going to be the same, especially if you're in the new developments in the south. A big pro of Milton in the past was the community involvement and the organizations, and we're starting to see that slip a little bit. For example, in 2025, the Canada Day events at the Milton Fairgrounds were canceled because of a lack of volunteers and the ability to run such a large-scale event. And that's been happening since the 1970s. So that's a big loss for the community, and we're starting to see this happen more and more. So before you make a move to Milton, it's important to understand that old town charm, that small town charm, is not quite the same as it used to be. And the final con that we'll look at today, and I think this is pretty common when you have a town grow so rapidly, is that the new developments feel a little cookie cutter or a little incomplete, especially as you get to the southern portion of Milton. This is where the newest development has gone in as it's expanded in the southern direction. You have more lack of basic amenities right now. It's still a construction zone for many. Schools are still being built, and so you have children going from one neighborhood to another for school. So if you're not ready for that kind of neighborhood, you just need to be able to choose your neighborhood more intentionally and do a little bit more research. So not all of New Milton is like that. The parts north, closer closer to the center, east and west, those have all been built out over the past 20 or 25 years. And you have mature areas and you have stable families, people that have been living there for a really long time. So you just have to be aware of those differences between the new Milton and the newer Milton before you make a move. So that's the real deal on Milton, the pros, the cons, and everything in between. For a lot of people, the safety, the affordable home values, and the nature and parks and outdoors are exactly what they're looking for. But if you're after a more vibrant city or chasing that small town charm, it might not check every box. But if you're seriously thinking about a move to Milton and you want to learn more about it, then you're going to want to watch this video next. And if you want to learn about Milton home prices and real estate, then check out the list of preferred homes linked in the description below.